Now this is my Specialized Turbo Vado SL4. It's about 3 years old now, and a lot of it's falling to bits and getting worn out, and I'm just in the process of changing this crank, but I'll just put it back on temporarily just to show you how wobbly it was. It doesn't just go this way, it actually comes side to side. That's the amount of wobble it actually has. Now I've not done the bolt up as tight as it will go, but that is actually just play in the mechanism from where it's worn out. Now I have actually used it. Now I should have replaced this much sooner, but I've not had the chance and I've not been able to get the spare parts easily, and I didn't have a suitably long Allen key, so unfortunately it's just worn and worn and worn, and now it's actually gone quite bad. Right, I've just taken the bolt out. If these were brand new, you would need this is actually a self-extracting mechanism which has a sort of a puller mechanism in, so it has a screw which goes on top, then you undo this bolt and the force pulls it off, but because this is so loose we can just lift it off ourselves, and you can see how wobbly it is. Now it may not be quite obvious, but I think the splines on here are quite worn as well, so unfortunately we might have to make do and we might have to bodge the replacement, but I'll just show you what the crank itself looks like. Now this is the left crank. It might be difficult to see on video because the bolt's in and this is covered in grease, but if you pay attention you'll be able to see that these splines are worn. There's a lot more gap between them than these are. And I've got here a brand new one. This isn't quite as lathered with grease, so you might be able to see a lot better. You can see there's a much more defined shape on these splines and a much smaller gap in between them. So I think that really just goes to show how worn out this old one was. But the problem is, if we have worn the splines out, that means this new one, when we put it on, will also be slightly loose. And that means, if this is slightly loose, when we start using it, there will be a little bit of play in it, and that will in turn cause this new one to wear out. So we might just have to make do with it until I can get some adhesive to go in and maybe fill in any gaps, or maybe make some sort of shim, but that depends on what it's like. So let's go and fit it and see what it's like. I'm just going to try and give it a good clean beforehand. I'll try some WD-40. Don't know what's recommended for this, but WD-40 is quite good for getting rid of unwanted grease. One of the problems we've got here, this is actually called a Praxis M30 fitting. It's fairly common on some mountain bikes, but it's not as common on electric bikes. Now this is a Specialized SL motor. That's for the super light bikes. This is quite a lightweighted bike. And the motors that they use on the bigger bikes have a different fitting, so you can't use the cranks from them. And it's also not compatible with the popular motors from Bosch and Yamaha and things like that. So I don't know how obvious it is on video, but that's what the splines on the motor spindle look like. And it's supposed to actually be a black colour, so you can see it's worn out. In fact, if you look towards the back, I think that's the bit that's not worn out, so you can see that has worn. So I'll just turn it around and show you the other side. Right, so this is the non-drive side, and again I don't know how obvious it is on the video. It's probably a bit dark, but you can see it is the original colour and the spines are kind of the right shape. I mean, you can see on the other side it was sort of this shape all the way through, or rather it was this shape just at the back, so that does show that the other side is actually very worn. I'm actually more used to the Shimano Holotech type cranks. I've never really used these before. This is one of the difficulties with things like this. You've got all these proprietary parts. You get different variations between different bikes, and it then becomes an absolute nightmare to find the bits that you actually want. Now this is actually a known problem. I won't be the only person to have had this problem. It is quite well reported on the internet. I think some people have had to have warranty replacements. There we go. If you look at that, there's actually very little play in that now, so I'm actually quite impressed with that. That's a new one. There's a little bit of side to side play. I will just tighten the bolt up a bit, but very, very little. I was expecting a lot more actually. I don't have the correct torque wrench for this, so we're just gonna have to make do. Just gonna have to make do with guessing it. I think that's probably about right. So now we've done that, the issue is, what can you actually get that's a replacement? So I mean, if these, if this does go bad again, I mean, one of them's gone bad, they may go bad again, what do you actually get as a replacement? Well, these are manufactured by Praxis, and you can get the identical replacement. It is a specialised part number, but you may struggle to find one, and these are actually 175mm cranks. You may struggle to actually find that size. You may find you can get the smaller ones, but they're not really a universal type of part. So they do make some others which you can get with this fitting. Praxis, I think they call them E-cranks. You can also get carbon fibre ones, and I'm surprised you can get carbon fibre, because I'm not really into carbon fibre stuff. I prefer metal. I don't trust myself. I mean, if you look at the kind of state that this bike's in, I really do not trust myself with carbon fibre. But you can get carbon fibre cranks, but they're very expensive. So you can get them replaced, but it might cost you a bit of money if you can't get an identical replacement part. But the main problem that I actually have is actually behind the crank, and that's this chainring here. I don't know how worn out it is. Maybe someone else could have a look at that on the video screen and tell me how worn out it looks. It certainly looks very worn out to me. The problem is the chain actually drops off it a lot. If you're in either the high gear or the low gear, or you change a lot at the same time, or you go over a bump, the chain actually falls off. And you can see sometimes it falls off, or more often than not now it tends to fall off this way, so you can just sort of pick it up and put it back on. But what it was doing originally, it was falling off in between the wheel and the frame, and you can see all the scuff marks on the frame there. That's from where it fell down there, and basically the only way to get it out is ideally with wearing some gloves, is to just sort of grab it and literally force it off. That's all you can do by the side of the road. If your chain's got stuck down there and you've been pedalling, so you put a lot of force on it to literally jam it as far as it'll go, the only thing you can do is try and literally use force to try and yank it back out. And I think that's a serious design flaw with either this chainring or this bike, because if you're using this for your shopping or for commuting, you don't want to be having to do that. I mean, it shouldn't be falling off in the first place, but if it does fall off, you need to be able to recover it. So I've got this BD Snail brand chainring. Came off eBay, 20 quid on eBay with the bolts. This is a 44 tooth one, and these seem a bit of an obscure part. It seems the only places you can get them are more specialist manufacturers, like one in Poland and one in America, which involves ordering internationally, or China. Anyway, this is the original Praxis one. It's a Praxis Wave. You can see it's a bit worn out, and to be honest, these are not very good. The chain falls off even if you do put the chain on the right way round. They're not very good, and I thought, I don't know how good these are, but I thought it can't be much worse. So this one is called a narrow wide chainring, and if the camera will focus, I think that's in focus, you can see the teeth alternate between a wide one and a narrow one. And that's because it's a single speed, and if you don't have that, the chain will fall off. These Praxis ones are a similar concept, but these sort of alternate the teeth back and forth, I think. You can't really see much. I think this is just a bit too worn out, to be honest. But I'll give that a good clean up first. The difference with these is you need the threaded inserts that come with the bolts, because the Praxis crank is actually, the Praxis chain wheel actually has threaded holes, whereas these don't. You need the threaded inserts to put in, so it's a little bit fiddly to tighten up. And there's probably a special tool actually for doing this, I won't be surprised. Well, I assume red snails go faster. Here's the new chain. This is a Decathlon one, although they're made by KMC. I don't know how they differ to the regular KMC, but here's what it looks like on the chain wheel. And you can see how the narrow-wide mechanism works. The wider teeth go on the outer links. If we do it that way, like that, it doesn't go on. But do it that way and it does, so hopefully that will stop it from falling off. Right, well I've done less than 100 miles and it's come a bit loose again. It is in that direction as opposed to that direction. It's nothing to do with the tightness of the bolt. This is the new crank. I did actually change the direction and it was a bit tight for like 10 minutes and then it came loose again. So I don't know if maybe there's a bit of good spline on the spindle and it's just wearing out the moment you put something new on. Either way, I think the only thing I can do is to glue it on. You can get adhesives which are designed for worn out splines, and I think I might just have to glue it on. I think that's the best I can do, because if I keep operating that regularly with this, it's just going to wear out. Right, so this is the replacement crank, and you can see it just lifts off. I've taken the bolt out, it just lifts off. There we go, I put the video light on. So you might just about be able to see that. Can we get the autofocus? So that'll show you the amount, that should just about show you the amount of play that there is in it. That should be a tight fit. If we put it on, it doesn't wobble in that direction. It's only sort of in that direction, so I'll just put the screw back in as tightly as I can. And you see, if we do that up, it only has a very little bit of play in it. I bet that'll come loose. So I don't know quite how much we can tighten it. I'll just see how much I can tighten it, but I'll have to put the camera down. Well, it actually feels kind of okay when it's on loosely, but the moment you tighten it up as far as it'll go, that's the amount of play. Well, that's actually interesting though. I've just put the self-extracting cap in and done it all really tight. It was quite loose before with the spanner. I just found when you put that in, it actually seems perfect. So we'll have to go for a ride and see how it works. Unfortunately, I've got the wrong size bolts for this chainring. The bolts came out and it came loose and bent itself, so I bent it back, but the bolts I've got are actually too short, so I'll have to get some longer ones. Right, well I've just rode 100 metres and it's come loose again. Oh well.